Yo, what is going on, guys? EGM coming at you with a brand new video, and today I'm finally going to be giving you guys my predictions for UFC 216. I know it's going to be super late that I upload these, probably the night or the day of the fight, but I just really wanted to see if this card was going to stay intact, because we all know that the co-main event of this current card was going to headline UFC 215, Ray Borg and Demetrious Johnson, but I believe Ray Borg was scrapped from the fight, I think the day before, due to a viral infection or something like that. So I just really wanted to see if this card was indeed going to stay intact. It has so far. Unless something unfortunate happens tomorrow, we're going to have some pretty entertaining fights going down. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the first fight on this main card, I'm only going to be breaking down the main card. If any of you guys want me to break down the entire card, I will. I just feel like breaking down the main card is much simpler, much easier, and I feel like most of the views come just to see the breakdowns of the main card. But if you want to see my predictions for the entire card, all the picks will be in the description down below, so make sure to go and check that out. But like I said, the first fight we're going to be talking about is a lightweight matchup between the 12th ranked lightweight in the world, Beneil Dariush, and the 14th ranked lightweight in the world, Evan Dunham. Now, I think this is going to be a pretty entertaining fight. Now, this is probably my pick to be the fight of the night. I think the style of these two fighters is going to make for a pretty entertaining matchup. But we got Beneil Dariush. Now, he has a record of 14-3. 6 of his wins come by submission. He has some pretty solid wins on his resume. It includes the likes of Michael Johnson, Jim Miller, Rashid Magomedov, and James Vick. Now, he does have some pretty tough losses to big name fighters. He's lost to Michael Chiesa, and most recently back in March in his last fight, he got knocked out cold by Edson Barbosa by a brutal knee to the face. But he was having tons of success in that fight, so it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back. I'm sure he's looking to get back into the win column, continue to climb the rankings and contention. But he has no easy opponent. He's going up against a UFC veteran in Evan Dunham, who always comes to fight. He always shows up, and he always performs. And like I said, Evan Dunham's a veteran, currently has a record of 18-6. 6 of his wins, also a third of his wins, come by submission, and he's currently riding a 4-fight win streak. Now, the only issue I have with Evan Dunham is that anytime he's stepped inside the octagon with top competition, he's lost. Before this 4-fight win streak, he had lost 3 straight to the former champ Rafael Dos Anjos, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and like Beneil Dariush, Edson Barbosa. But like I said, he's pretty hot right now. He's beating Ross Pearson, Joe Lozon, so he has some solid wins over some pretty good veterans in the sport. However, I do think he's going to have his work cut out for him with Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush is younger, he's faster, he's the way better striker. Both these guys are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, so it'll be interesting to see who has the advantage if the fight hits the mat. I would probably give the advantage to Beneil Dariush, but I do think that a majority of this fight is going to be standing up, and it's obvious who has the advantage in the stand-up, and I think it's Beneil Dariush. I think he's a much better boxer, much better overall striker. He's also a black belt in Muay Thai, and I do see this fight going the distance. The last time that Evan Dunham finished somebody was back in 2012, so in his last 5 victories, all fights have gone to decision. And it also doesn't help that he hasn't fought since September of last year. Now, Beneil Dariush has fought twice since Evan Dunham has last fought, so I do think that Beneil Dariush is going to come in here, he's going to outlast him, he's going to outpoint him. But I am really hoping to God that this is a slugfest, that this is an entertaining fight, and I do think it will be. I just give the edge to Beneil Dariush, and I do see Beneil Dariush coming away with the unanimous decision victory. Alright, so next up we have one of the first women's flyweight bouts ever in the UFC between Romero Borello and Kalindra Faria. Now, I don't know too much about these women because I've never actually seen them fight live. I mean, I've done some research on them, but as far as knowing their strengths and weaknesses in great detail, I won't be able to give you that kind of information because this is going to be both of their UFC debuts. So I'm just going to try to break down this fight as best as I can. Kalindra Faria, I do know that she is a great talent outside of the UFC. She was the Titan FC Bantamweight Champion. She stepped inside the octagon with some top names like Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Claudia Gadelha, Jessica Aguilar, so she definitely has an impressive resume in terms of the opponents that she stepped in there with. She currently has a record of 18-5, and she's also currently on a 3-fight win streak. She has 7 wins come by knockout, another 5 come by submission, so she does have some experience in terms of being able to finish fights. But she is going to have her hands full with Borello. This is a big fight for her. I believe she's the first Italian woman to ever compete in the UFC, so I know she's gonna have a whole country supporting her. She's gonna be very motivated for this fight. She's an excellent kickboxer. She currently has a black belt in kickboxing. She's also a black belt in judo. Excellent ground game, ground and pound as well. And she also does have the submission skills to be able to back it up. Almost half of her wins come via submission. And like Faria, she too is on a winning streak that now stands at 5. So it's going to be an interesting fight. Like I said, history is being made. It is a key part in the introduction to the women's flyweight division. But I think that Faria has the edge in this fight, skill-wise. And I think also mentally, because, I mean, it can come to skill, it can come to talent. But at the end of the day, experience is a son of a gun, man, I'm telling you. And because Faria has stepped in there with some top names like Gadelha and Carolina, who are still contenders in their respective division, I just think that this is going to be a fight that's going to hit the mat. We're going to see some striking exchanges, some grappling exchanges as well. I do expect to see this fight tap into different areas of the game. I just see Faria being more prepared, more experienced, and outlasting Romero in a tough fight. Split decision victory. Now next up, we move to the big boys. We got a heavyweight fight between Derrick the Black Beast Lewis and Fabricio Werdum. Werdum is currently the 2nd ranked heavyweight in the world, has a record of 21-7, is a veteran of the sport, very experienced, very skilled. And this is also a guy who is a former champion at that weight division before being knocked out by Stipe Miocic. So this guy's been around, he's had success, he's beaten some of the top names, not just in the current division, but in the history of the heavyweight division. I mean, he's beaten Fedor Emelianenko, Roy Nelson, Minotauro Nogueira, Mark Hunt, and even Cain Velasquez to become the world heavyweight champion. But he's trying to gain some momentum now. I mean, like I said, he lost his belt, got knocked out of Stipe Miocic in the first round, which was a very weird performance by Fabricio Werdum. He usually tends to stick to his game plan of getting the fight to the ground and utilizing his excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to be able to tap opponents out. But for some reason, he was chasing and headhunting Stipe Miocic, and we all know that's not a good idea, especially with the boxing skills and the power that Miocic possesses. And Stipe caught him, man. And Stipe's still the champion to this day. But after that fight, he bounced back with a decision victory over Travis Brown. Now, most recently, back at UFC 213, he was in a bout with Alistair Overeem. Now, that was a very close fight. I did give the edge to Fabricio Werdum. He did rock him. I can't remember if it was the 2nd or the 3rd round, but he wobbled Alistair Overeem. But then again, that happens to Alistair Overeem in pretty much almost any fight that he's in. But he did wobble him. I think he did enough to, I think he pressured in the 3rd round, and I think he did enough to win 2 rounds. I was pretty convinced that Fabricio Werdum won that fight. They gave it to Alistair Overeem. So he's just looking to stay in contention. He's looking to get back in the win column, build some momentum, and eventually earn another shot at Stipe Miocic for the belt. Now he's going up against Derrick Lewis. Lewis is a guy that is also coming off of a loss. The last time he stepped into the octagon, he was knocked out by Mark Hunt in the 4th round. But I mean, before that loss to Mark Hunt, he was on a roll, man. He had won 6 straight fights, including against Travis Brown, in which he was losing the fight before eventually landing a shot that hurt Brown and was able to TKO him. He'd beaten Roy Nelson, Gabriel Gonzaga, Damian Grabowski. Definitely some solid wins. Now he hasn't stepped inside the octagon with a fighter of the caliber of Fabricio Werdum, a former champion. And Derrick Lewis is probably one of the heavyweight contenders that has holes in his game that are quite obvious. His conditioning is horrendous, his ground game is suspect, but he makes up for those weaknesses with power and the ability to time his punches. Now 8 of his last 9 victories have come by TKO or knockout. So this is a guy that always finds a way to land that shot, and once he lands that shot, it'll hurt you and it'll be enough to put you down. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's able to perform in a fight of this magnitude. But I do like Derrick Lewis. I'm a big fan of Derrick Lewis, personality wise, as a fighter as well. But I like the new version of Derrick Lewis that we're seeing in the UFC embedded vlogs, in his media interviews. I just like the way he's carrying himself. I believe he's taking care of his body better than he was before. He's getting all the right nutrition. He's eating better. He's getting into better workout routines. He looks in way better shape. In the weigh-in earlier, he looked way better than some of his previous weigh-ins. You could tell that he's definitely lost a little bit of weight. So by the looks of it, he's doing everything right in order for him to have success in this fight. Now, if Werdum wants to win this fight, he's gonna have to stick to his game plan. He cannot get into a striking exchange with Derrick Lewis. And I'm not saying because Derrick Lewis is the better overall striker. I probably would say that Werdum is the better overall striker. His striking has improved vastly in his past few fights, in the past couple of years actually. Fabricio Werdum has, but I wouldn't want to get in a striking exchange with Derrick Lewis simply because Derrick Lewis has power, and if he tags Werdum, being that Werdum is 40 years old, his chin is 40 years old, I don't know if it'll be able to sustain that kind of hit. Therefore, I do expect Fabricio Werdum to try to grind Derrick Lewis out, pick him apart from a distance, and eventually tire him out and get the fight to the ground, where he will use his superior Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Fabricio Werdum is one of the best in the game when it comes to BJJ, so I would expect him to use that facet of his arsenal, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do that. I mean, if Derrick Lewis does come in better shape, it's going to be very hard for Werdum to stay in the fight if Derrick Lewis is still in it in the late second, early third round. If he's still throwing punches with volume and punches with power and not getting as tired as he has in previous fights, and Werdum's going to be in a world of trouble. Now, I do think the safe pick here would be Fabricio Werdum because he is the much more skilled fighter. And I do really want to pick Derrick Lewis. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Derrick Lewis does land that shot and KOs Fabricio Werdum. I do think it would have to be in the first round, and if it does happen, it will most certainly happen within about 2.5-3 minutes. And I do think that the smart pick, like I said, would be Fabricio Werdum. So I think I'm gonna have to say Fabricio Werdum is gonna win this fight, but I'm gonna go on record and say that it would not shock me at all if Derrick Lewis catches Fabricio Werdum in the first round and knocks him out. Trust me when I say this, that was my first pick, my original pick. Like I said, I really did like the way Derrick Lewis was looking and the way he was preparing for this fight. Now, the only reason why I switched it back to the safe pick in Fabricio Werdum is because it's very hard to change your conditioning or improve your conditioning vastly in just one training camp when you've been training over and over again with bad habits. So I mean, I did really want to pick Derrick Lewis in this fight, but I'm not. I'm really trying to go for my first perfect scorecard. So on that note, I'm gonna make the pick of Fabricio Werdum finishing this fight in the third round via submission. I really am gonna be upset if Derrick Lewis somehow pulls it off, but I'm gonna stick with Fabricio Werdum. Now, next up, we move on to the co-main event of the evening, a flyweight championship bout between Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson and Ray the Tazmexican Devil Borg. Now, the last two times these gentlemen were going to square off was, like I said earlier in the video, in the introduction of this video, back at UFC 215, the day before the fight, I believe it was. After the weigh-ins, Ray Borg was rushed to the hospital because of a viral infection. Many people speculated that it was mostly due to weight cutting issues, but it did indeed end up being a viral infection that affected Ray Borg and resulted in him being scrapped from the fight, from his championship shot. But as far as I'm concerned, the fight's still going down tomorrow. They weighed in, everything looks good, both fighters looked good in the weigh-in, so we have ourselves a scrap tomorrow. Now let's start off with Ray Borg. Ray Borg is coming off a 2-fight win streak. He was one of the hottest prospects in that division after he defeated Luis Smolka. Followed that up with a good win against Jussier Formiga in a close contest in which he came out with a unanimous decision victory. But now he's taking a huge step forward, or a huge leap in competition. Now he's taking on arguably the greatest fighter of all time and probably the most dominant champion of all time. But Ray Borg definitely has tools that he can use in this fight to be successful and definitely present problems for Demetrious Johnson. But Demetrious Johnson is the champion. He's the champion for a reason. He's as dominant as he is for a reason. It's simply because he prepares for every fight, for every fighter, the same way, and that is to dominate. I mean, Demetrious Johnson is just on another level. There is simply nothing that he cannot do. He's excellent in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a very strong grappler. Pretty much no holes in his Muay Thai and his striking overall. I would probably say the only weakness in Demetrious Johnson's game, which is not even a technical weakness, it's more so of a physical weakness, would probably be strength, because I do think Ray Borg is stronger. I do think other guys like Henry Cejudo are stronger than Demetrious Johnson, but he just knows how to use his skill set and not just utilize all of his skills, but he just knows how to win, and he knows how to do it in a very dominating fashion. Demetrious Johnson is looking to defend his title for a record-setting, what would be a record-setting 11th time. He's currently defended it 10 times. He hasn't lost since his last fight to Dominic Cruz, The only 2 losses on his record would belong to Brad Pickett and Dominic Cruz, who currently fight, or well, Brad Pickett is retired, but they both fought in the bantamweight division, so they are naturally bigger, stronger guys than Demetrious Johnson. But once he moved to the flyweight division, once that division opened up and he beat Joseph Benavidez to become the first ever flyweight champion, he hasn't done nothing but dominated. I mean, the first fight with Joseph Benavidez for the vacant flyweight championship was a very close fight. Some people argue that Joseph Benavidez won, but in the rematch, what happens? Demetrious Johnson goes out there and knocks Joseph Benavidez out. Demetrious Johnson just looks unbeatable. I mean, the guy is so talented, so skilled, it's absolutely ridiculous. He just takes pride in beating you at your own game. He's just so great, and it's so amazing to watch. Now, a lot of people give crap about the flyweight division, about nobody really wants to watch those kinds of fights. Nobody wants to pay to watch Demetrious Johnson fight, but this is greatness. This is history happening before our eyes. I mean, it'll probably be a while before we see a champion as dominant as Demetrious Johnson is. I mean, I think it's pretty funny to see a guy that only has two straight wins get a crack at one of the greatest fighters ever, but it's simply because Demetrious Johnson has dominated everybody in division. He's beaten Wilson Hayes, Henry Cejudo, Joseph Benavidez, Kyoji Horiguchi, John Dodson, who he fought twice and beat twice. Like I said, he fought Joseph Benavidez twice. But with Ray Borg is a new face and a new challenge, and with a new challenge comes risk. So I do think, like I said, that there are some aspects in the game in where Ray Borg can present some problems. I do think that he's a very strong grappler, and he's very strong for the division. He's very fast with his hands, very light on his feet, pretty good head movement. His boxing is pretty good, and I think that if he wants to win this fight, he's going to have to make it a dogfight, similar to what Tim Elliott was trying to do when he got a shot at Demetrious Johnson. I think he's going to have to make it very scrappy, and that's the kind of fighter that Ray Borg is. He's very scrappy. I'm going to look for him to utilize his takedowns early, but I just think that it's going to be very hard to keep Demetrious Johnson down. I can see Ray Borg taking him down. I can see him taking down DJ a few times, but DJ's gonna get right back up. And once the fight is standing up for long periods of time, that's where problems are gonna present itself for Ray Borg, because Demetrious Johnson is so versatile. His movement is excellent. Now it is gonna be interesting to watch to see how Ray Borg handles being in this kind of situation, in this big fight where everybody is going to be watching to see if he can be the one to dethrone Demetrious Johnson. I'm not saying that he's not up for it. I think he's very capable. I do think he's going to be I think he's a potential future champion. I think he's going to be very good in the future. I just think that he's going to lose this fight, and lose it rather convincingly, and all he can do is just use it to better himself and to come back stronger. I do think he's going to be a learning experience for Ray Borg, but I think Demetrious Johnson is just too much for him, especially at this point in Mighty Mouse's career. He's on a roll. He's confident. He's going to be extra motivated to break the record. And I do see Demetrious Johnson dominating Ray Borg and coming away with the round 5 submission victory. And now we move on to the main event of the evening, a very anticipated matchup for the Interim Lightweight Championship between Tony El Cucuy Ferguson and the Motown Phenom Kevin Lee. Now, this is a fight that people were expecting to happen after Kevin Lee's last fight against Michael Chiesa, in which he submitted him in the first round. It was a controversial victory for Kevin Lee because Michael Chiesa technically never tapped, so therefore it's not a real submission victory, even though it does go down officially as a dub. But that's beside the point. Now, Kevin Lee was being interviewed by the Fox reporters after the fight. Tony Ferguson just so happened to be working as an analyst that day, and he asked Kevin Lee a question. Kevin Lee took it the wrong way, and they started exchanging words. So after that, we kind of got the hunch that this fight would eventually happen if Tony Ferguson was not awarded an interim title fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib never stepped up to the fight, never stepped up to the plate. So therefore, Kevin Lee stepped in. He's the only one brave enough to sign the dotted line to fight Tony Ferguson. Now, Kevin Lee is one of the top young prospects. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call him a prospect anymore because he's getting a title shot for the interim lightweight belt. But leading up to his last fight, the Chiesa fight, he was a prospect, and Chiesa was the kind of test that he needed to prove himself and establish himself as a legitimate fighter in this stacked 155-pound division. Now he came away with a victory. Now whether if Chiesa did tap or not, I think he was on his way out. Anything could have happened, so I would have liked to seen the fight go on longer. I don't think Yamasaki should have stepped in when he did, but it happened. Kevin Lee came away with a victory, and now he's in this position. He's coming off of a 5-fight win streak that includes the likes of, like I said, Michael Chiesa, Francisco Trinaldo, and he really did impress me in that fight because Trinaldo was tapping him up. He was jabbing him up. He was winning the exchanges on the feet before Kevin Lee hurt him with a high kick, wobbled him, and eventually got it the fight to the ground, sunk in a rear naked choke on Trinaldo. So I was really impressed with Kevin Lee's durability and his heart and his desire to win. He currently has a record of 16-2. He's 9-2 in the UFC. The only losses on his resume come from Aoiya Quinta and Thiago Santos. So Kevin Lee's hot right now. He's on a roll, and he's looking to continue that, or to take that momentum into the Tony Ferguson fight. But Tony Ferguson is a different animal. This guy has fought contender after contender. I mean, he won the Ultimate Fighter at 170 pounds, made the move down to 155 pounds. He currently has a record of 23-3, a record of 12-1 in the UFC. The only loss coming to Michael Johnson, and that was a tough fight for Tony Ferguson because he broke his arm early in round 1 and still managed to win a round in that fight. So still managed to make it competitive, and I personally think that if he never broke his arm, he would be undefeated in the UFC right now. But I mean, this guy has won 9 straight. He's beaten Abel Trujillo, Gleison Tebow, Josh Thompson, Edson Barbosa in an excellent fight in which he overcame adversity, a fight that I think he was losing before he eventually seeked in a choke and finished Edson Barbosa. He survived an early scare from Lando Venata, who at the time took the fight on 2 weeks notice. Venata wobbled him a few times, but Tony Ferguson came through, eventually hurt Venata a few times on the feet once Venata was gassed out, choked him out as well, came through with the victory just like true champions do. And most recently, he dominated the former champion Rafael Dos Anjos, and that was back in November. So it's almost a year. It's about 11 months since Tony Ferguson has last stepped foot in the octagon. But I think it's because many people are afraid, or not necessarily afraid, but understand the risk that comes with fighting Tony Ferguson. He's very violent, very malicious in his fighting style, and he's just an all-around fighter. He's so tough. He has such a good chin. I've seen him rock before. I've seen him wobbled, hurt badly, and he's still able to come through and come away with the victory. So when it comes to Tony Ferguson, we're probably looking at the best lightweight in the world, the most complete lightweight in the world. So for Kevin Lee to come into this fight, with not as great of a resume as Tony Ferguson has. I mean, yeah, Michael Chiesa is a big win, but Michael Chiesa was still unproven in that division. He still hadn't fought or beaten anybody inside the top 5. Trinaldo was having his way with Kevin Lee before Kevin Lee landed that nice kick to the head, which completely changed the momentum of the fight. But this is just a different animal, as I continue to say. I just think that Kevin Lee bit off way more than he can chew with this fight. I mean, Tony Ferguson's boxing is way better than Kevin Lee, and it's really gonna test Kevin Lee's chin. Now, I'm not saying that Tony Ferguson has tremendous power, because he's not the hardest hitter, but he's accurate with his punches, his accuracy, his footwork, his movement. He's very unpredictable, and I think as the fight goes on, he's gonna punish Kevin Lee. He's gonna test Kevin Lee's chin. I mean, Kevin Lee got knocked out by Thiago Santos, who's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So if he got knocked out by that guy, imagine what Tony Ferguson is gonna do. I do think that he could have finished Rafael Dos Anjos in the last fight, but I think that he wanted to prove that since the fight was in Mexico City, that he has a gas tank right now that's on a completely another level than any other fighter in the lightweight division. So this is a tough fight for Kevin Lee. I think, like I said, I think this is gonna be way too much for him. I think that even though Kevin Lee's a strong grappler and he's excellent on the ground, he always looks for an opportunity to jump on your back. Now, Kevin Lee's last 3 wins, I believe, have come via rear naked choke, all by that same submission. But Tony Ferguson has great submission skills. He has excellent submission defense. I mean, this guy is as complete as they come. He's a complete package. Now, Kevin Lee cannot box. That's the weakness in his game. He's in good shape. He's a strong guy. He's a great grappler, a great wrestler. Like I said, great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. but Tony Ferguson is much better at striking. He's very difficult to get to the ground, and he throws his strikes from a variety of different angles. He mixes in some elbows, mixes in some knees. He throws good strong kicks. So I mean, it's very difficult for me to see Kevin Lee win this fight. I don't think he's gonna win this fight, and I do think that El Cucuy is gonna dominate Kevin Lee, and I think Ferguson should have Lee figured out by the end of the first round. I do think he's gonna be able to finish him in the second round. I think he should finish him in the second round, but knowing El Cucuy, he's gonna want to prove to everybody out there, especially the current champion Conor McGregor, who's been away from the division, away from the sport for over a year now. He's gonna prove to him that he's the top dog in that division, and because he's out to prove that, he's gonna make the fight last longer. He's going to punish Kevin Lee, and I do see him stopping the fight, TKOing Kevin Lee in the late 4th round and being crowned the interim lightweight champion of the world. Now, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys like my picks. I hope you guys subscribe, like, share the video, comment, give me your picks for UFC 216. I want to know what you guys think about the fight. And I also did invest in another mic, so hopefully you guys enjoy the audio quality. Hopefully it is noticeable. But yeah, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to stay tuned for more content.